I'm betting that you are not even considering Ezreal when it appears on your shop, but I can tell you, and I hope with this video, I can show you how you have been missing out an insane opportunity, because I do believe Ezreal is one of the most underestimated full cost carry right now. Everyone is focused on Akali, casters, and obviously because they are strong, but everyone forgets about Ezreal and how good it is and how it can help you stabilize your board at stage 4 so hard, so you can reach stage 5 and stage 6 with a lot of health and a lot of gold. So in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I've been earning like around 100 LP per day by playing this comp mostly, but I'm not an OTP anyway, and how you can also optimize your hardstyle cash out in the early or mid game to transition into something even better in the late game. So now let's talk about that comp. I'm using Tacter. It's a guide I wrote. You can have access with the link in the description. It's also the sponsor of this channel. Everything is free, don't worry. So you can just click on the link and get access to this guide immediately. So let's talk about the different stages of this comp. I think the most critical part that you guys need to understand is how to play the stage 4, because right now the stage 4 is the most critical part where you need to balance between greed and also tempo. If you greed too much, try to stack too much gold, you will lose too much health, and yes, you can push level 9, but you will have 30 gold left and you will not find a late game board and you will lose and finish 8th or 7th immediately. That happened to me a lot until I understood that. Or if you play too much tempo and you roll down every single turn at level 8, yes, you will win the stage 4 fights, you might win a few stage 5 fights, but you will never scale and win the stage 6 fights. So this is where it's the most tricky moment in the game right now in this meta. It might change later, but that's why I wanted to start with this point. So when you're level 8 at around stage 4, so between usually stage 4-2 if you have a lot of gold, or stage 4-5 if you didn't have a lot of gold but you have enough health to tank a few rounds. So you will roll and you will try to get this board. The idea behind this board is to have 2 carries, one AD, Ezreal, one AP, which is TF. Because this comp is so good in this stage, you will most likely not lose any fight if you have everything upgraded at 2 stars. You can keep having hardstyle, because not only it gives you a lot of synergies, so basically your Jazz has even more value, but also you will stack more gold, more LMs. And this is a comp where you're actually happy with having more LMs because you need to stuff 2 carries plus 1 big tank, and why not another tank since you had it. Another thing I want to talk, but I will talk a bit about later. Here you can have a Jazz path. Obviously you don't have it every game. If you have it, you have a lot of chance to finish 1st or 2nd. If you don't have it, you can finish 3rd or 4th, or you can try to scale with another comp in the very late game. But since you play hardstyle in the early mid game, it's quite often that you have the priority on the carousel because you lose on purpose to have more stacks of hardstyle. And since you have priority on the carousel, there's a high chance that you actually get access to a spatula that helps you to make the Jazz emblem. But we will talk about the early mid game a bit later. First I want to show you like how you can cap out this board as much as you can. So it's kind of obvious in a sense, and it's very easy. That's one of the main strengths of this comp. It's very easy to cap out this board without changing everything. Basically you have Set will become Eloy. You will have Ezreal. Ezreal can become Jhin. Here I didn't put Jhin, but you can have Jhin instead of Ezreal. You have Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate will become Ziggs. You already have Jazz, so you just add Lucian, and then after you just add Yorick, and you add Thresh to have Guardian, and then you have the Exodia comp almost. And that's pretty much it. That's it. It's very easy. You don't need to sell everything, gamble everything in 60 gold. You just do it slowly, and you pick what you find in your shops naturally. So now you understand the very late game win condition of this comp. Let's talk about the early mid game, because this is also a very important matter. So obviously the best case scenario you can always dream of, and if you have it, you have probably one of the best possible outcome for this comp, is to have early or mid game hardstyle scenario. Because with that, again, the transition will be extremely easy to transition from this mid game to this, let's say, end of mid game. I don't know how to call this moment, but it's extremely easy. It doesn't cost you much gold. You just need to roll for 1 highliner instead of obviously a hardstyle highliner, and you stack so much gold, so many items, and sometimes you have even spatulas, you know, champion duplicators, this kind of stuff. So super easy. But obviously this is not the only mid game comp you can go for. I kind of want to say one of the other strengths of the comp with Ezreal is that you can play it from almost any spot. You don't necessarily need to have mid-game with heartsteel or an early game with heartsteel. As long as you have AD items, AP items, tank items, and you have a good amount of economy and you're healthy, you can switch into this comp whenever you want. You don't need to have heartsteel. It's just like if you have heartsteel, I kind of want to say it's like you playing the game but with cheats activated, basically. But if you don't have it, the comp is still playable, and that's really important. Now I want to talk about a couple of other things which are also important, is the items that you want to have on Ezreal, on TF, and also the augments I really like for this comp. So I put the items here in order, meaning like on the left is the best items possible, on the right is the one you kind of want to avoid. So I really like the full crit AD on Ezreal. I don't really like mana generation, even though it's not that bad, but it's not as effective. You really understand if you play this comp that if you have Infinity Edge, Last Whisper plus Hand of Justice, so Ezreal is kind of almost guaranteed to crit. I don't know if he has 100% with that build, but probably. And the thing is, when you have Ezreal 2 at stage 4 and stage 5, he will literally one-shot everyone. He might take a bit of time to use his big AoE, but holy crap, it will deal massive amount of damage. He will kill any unit that's only 1 star, and even units with 2 stars without having too much defense, or like if they don't have Sentinel, if they don't have Bruiser, this kind of stuff, they will die. So this is a great way, and that's why this comp caps very hard at stage 4, because you literally wipe out any board that's not fully stabilized, and you punish them so hard that they start to panic, they start to roll faster without having much gold, and you're fine because you have a lot of health, you win streak, you're winning more gold thanks to a heartsteel and all of that. So I really love this build. I really like Hand of Justice on Ezreal because there are many times where he jumps a little bit too aggressively into the board and he takes damage, so having a Hand of Justice helps him to survive a bit longer. And then after you have other offensive stuff like Display, Giant Slayer. Red buff is actually better than Shojin or blue buff if you want to have attack speed or kind of mana generation. And then after it's all the stuff like you play with what you have basically. On the other hand, for Twisted Fate, it's a little bit harder to stuff properly because since you're prioritizing for Ezreal most of the time, you just put whatever you have left for Twisted Fate. So I really like red buff on him, better than Shojin, but if you have Shojin, it's very nice. I really like to have things like Archangel because the fights can be quite long, so he will be good with Archangel. And Twisted Fate will have one job, only one job, is to clean up whatever Ezreal didn't finish off. So basically, don't rely on him as your main carry, but just like a great cleaner, so you can like clean the board very easily. And then here I put a couple of augments I really like to have. So if you play with Hostile, you will play with a comeback strategy, obviously, because you will lose on purpose, so you will lose health, and you will try to come back with the advantage of gold and resources that you have after. So if you play with Hostile, anything that can help you making that comeback is excellent. So Tiny Titans, Vampirism, and you have Shopping Spree, because if you play a Hostile, you just lose on purpose, you don't roll early game and mid game, and when you push 8, you have like 20 free shops or even more maybe, so you will definitely stabilize your board very hard. The other thing I really like to have with this comp is to have a bit more items than the others, so things like Binary, Buried Treasures, and Jewel Lotus is not an item, but for me I count it like as a great 4th item on your carries, so that's why I count it as an item. Portable Forge, this kind of stuff. And finally, actually, if you are win streaking and you manage to have the Jazz emblem, then you should play Curse Crown because you can max out the value of Jazz and never lose again in single time in your whole game after. So this is a bit risky, I would say, but if you have the value of Jazz, this is one of the best omen you can have. And finally, one last thing I want to talk about this guide, obviously, is the highliners. So about highliners, I think there are many things you can choose. Actually, I forgot to add one here and I will add later after the video is made. So basically, I think for me, the best highliner is Blitzcrank. I really like the Blitzcrank Disco because it's simply like a great highliner that stabilizes your board because you have a strong front line. So even if you have 1-star backline, you should still have a good amount of chance to win fights. Maybe not all of them, but a good amount of chance. And also the one thing I really like about this is like when you reach level 9, you can sell this highliner and try to aim for Yorick highliner, Eli highliner, and anything that actually helps you to have a better front line. While if you have Ezreal as your highliner, if you sell Ezreal, you have no choice but to try to find something like Jhin. So it's quite limited and the chances are quite low. So what I like to have is Blitzcrank Disco, then Sentinel, then I like to have Ezreal Heartsteel because it helps you to have 3 Heartsteel and you can remove Cassante, so you have a better board, or you can have 5 Heartsteel, or very easily actually, so you can grid a little bit more to have even more rewards. Then after I like to have Twisted Fate Disco, then after I like to have Ezreal Big Shot, because the problem with Big Shot is like you play with 3 Big Shot and it's a kind of awkward position, but it's definitely not worth removing 1 key you need to have 4 Big Shot, so that's why it's kind of wasted, the +1 trait. I would put Twisted Fate Dazzler, kind of similar place. You have 3 Dazzler, but you don't want to sacrifice someone to have 4 Dazzler because it's not worth it. And then after, in between this and set, I like to have Misfortune Jazz because it helps you to have +1 Jazz, and actually you can keep this Misfortune for quite a long time because it can help you reach 4 Jazz, which is the win condition we saw earlier. This is the highest win rate of this comp, so if you have 4 Jazz, it's actually quite nice. And then after, I put set as Heartsteel. Heartsteel set is kind of okay. Like if you are stabilizing a stage 4-2 and you have a Heartsteel set, you can pick it because the same way as Heartsteel Ezreal, you can either remove Cassante to have something better, or you can have 5 Heartsteel if you're healthy enough to grid a little bit more for one stage, and then after usually you remove set to have something better in the very late game to have this board. So there's another thing I want to talk about this comp. This comp will be affected by the next patch. So how it will be affected is kind of in a balanced way because Ezreal and a lot of Heartsteel units will get buffed, so it means that not only during the early and mid game you should lose less health while cashing out your Heartsteel, and also Ezreal will deal more damage. But on the other hand, we have Jazz that's getting nerfed quite heavily actually, so I don't know how exactly this will result now, but I do expect like the stage 4 of this comp will be much higher and maybe the late game will be less capped and we can find another optimization later. So until next video, see you at the top of the ladder.